Seesawsiem, 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 seesawsiem. Yetch cow hi, yetch cow hi, yetch cow hi, yetch cow hi. Hey, hi everybody, this is Coyote Chris Sutton.
Hi, I'm Sharla Hardin.
And this is the Spirit Drum, and tonight we have a very special guest here on the Spirit Drum. We have the Reverend Tim Shaw. Now, Tim is somebody who is one of those multi-layered people. He's like an onion. You keep peeling and peeling and peeling. You keep finding all this interesting stuff underneath. And I ran across Tim a year ago in Hinsdale, New York, at the haunted Hinsdale House. He came to an event I was having with Dan Class and Charles Anthony at the time. And he came trooping in with Calvin Von Crush, also the Vidi Space Network. And that's the first time we ever met, and ever since I've been kind of fascinated with this person. I wanted to spend more time with him, but his schedule's real busy, my schedule's real busy. But tonight we get to hang out for an hour, and Sharla and I will be putting him over the grill and seeing what makes this man tick. Tim, welcome to the show, buddy.
Peeling the onion.
That's right, peel the onion.
I just smell like an onion a lot. That's all. That's all. Here in Western New York, we're getting our summer, it should last for like 4 weeks. And so it's hot and it's just the way it is. So yes, we're all like onions up here.
So
are you going to make me cry?
I would never make you cry. Well, maybe. I get accused of that a lot when I'm doing like one-on-one readings, and it's like, no, don't cry. This is happy.
Yeah, onions make you cry. Onions make me cry. I don't like onions.
I cook with. Oh, then you couldn't come over to my house because I cook with a lot of garlic and onions here.
My cousin, who's Italian, says, I don't know what to make for you when you come to my house. What am I going to make for you? You don't like raw tomatoes. You don't like onions. She said, I'm Italian.
That's what they eat.
Everything has tomatoes and onions.
It does.
But I do like
tomatoes
tomatoes
cooked.
lot.
I cook a lot, so it's like, yeah, those are the mainstays of my diet now.
Well, if I ever come to your house for dinner, promise me that you'll grind them up as small as possible, so I'll never know they're there.
You know what? That's why onion powder is the champion of those who just cannot swallow anything like that might even be close to an onion.
Or if they have to be big enough for me to take out, or small enough to where I can't detect them at all.
You got it, kid. You got it.
All right.
You got it.
I'm coming to dinner at the Shaws.
I do a lot of plant-based stuff now. It's like I cook a lot of zucchini, a lot of, I do the zucchini raviolis. I do zucchini enchiladas. That's like zucchini lasagna. That's the mainstay of my diet now, kids. So.
Zucchini is good. Eggplant?
A lot of eggplant.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? I got no choice. I had some health stuff going on, and so I did some research, and a plant-based diet for the most part is probably one of your most healthiest diets. So here I am, craving for a hamburger. No.
Yeah, I was going to say, Charlie, you have to eat there. I'll have to go down to the Golden Corral or whatever's down the street there.
No. I don't like to eat it. That would kill me. I just got back from Gettysburg this weekend. I had to meet my nephew down there, and then I did actually did 2 investigations this weekend, and I'll tell you what, I went off my plant-based diet for a day and a half, and
no bueno.
All I got to say is the EVPs have to be well filtered out this weekend.
Keep going, tag.
Yeah. 417 tag. 10-7 stomach tag. That's a lot of them.
So here you are. The first time I ever met you, you're toting around a camera, and I also know for helping Calvin with the show. And I also know you film for Dan and Louie and Lynn when they do Within These Walls. And so, okay, you're a camera guy. What is that? What is it? Is it just been with the paranormal, or what else have you also videographed?
Well, I spent 34 and a half years pushing asphalt and concrete. That was my day job. And I always, and as we talked a little bit off the air, I've had some medical problems. And every time I had surgery, I was off 4 to 6 weeks. Every time. So right about surgery number 5, I started saving up about $500-600 in slush funds, and I would go on Amazon and I would indulge in one of my hobbies, which years ago was photography. Well, I kind of got the bug to do videography. So I actually taught myself videography back when I was in my 50s. Thank you. And that wasn't last week, believe me. And it was great. And from there, I work for Lockport. Well, I shouldn't say I work. I do volunteer work for Lockport Cable TV, public access for not-for-profits. I work on 4 shows on a regular basis, and I do fill-in work, and I do all sorts of little things. And I got hooked on it, so I have fun with it. And I'm be having a show coming out there, shameless plug that I have to do, called Curiosity on the Road, and I'm gonna interview different people, and I want to do is I want to go and talk to people that I'm curious about, and I want to bring that out, and it's gonna be a one-man show. You know, I'll be setting it up, I'll be turning the camera on, and I'll be interviewing everybody.
That sounds great, man. So it's just basically like on the road kind of thing, and just stopping off and talking.
It's fun. I did that about a year and a half ago. We produced a show called Curiosity, of all things, and we got a chance to go down to all sorts of really neat places in the East, and I got a chance to really meet some really interesting people. And I had a host at the time, and I was doing all the tech work. And now I decided that I'm at a point where I can just throw the camera in. I've got enough equipment to do it, and just let it go. Nice half-hour show. Hello, goodbye, and welcome to TV land, babies, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Oh, sorry, it wasn't me. I was channeling. I was channeling the spirit. That's what it was. Barnum and Bailey's spirit. I was channeling.
So there's a sucker born every minute, huh?
That's
it. So where can we see your this show at?
You're going to be able to see it. It goes on, of course, LCTV first, and then I'm going to be putting it on Facebook with links to a YouTube page, a YouTube channel that I've created, and you'll be able to find that, and it's nice and easy, and you'll see me like looking around a lot and doing one of these and being lost and getting lost, because that's what I do, because I'm now over 60, and that's a man thing now. Seriously, man brain.
Okay, explain that to me.
Man brain.
Let's break that down a little bit. Let's dig into that.
My man brain?
Yes.
My man brain.
Getting lost.
I go and I admit my man brain. That's the one thing that a lot of guys don't do. I turned 62 on July 4th. And I said, you know what? I'm going to admit that my brain does not function properly. It never has, never will. And I'm just going to say I have to take a lot of notes, and even then, I won't follow them. So
when did you first notice that? When did you first really start to notice that? Do you remember?
About 18. I'm not going to lie. About 18 years old, I think.
I mean,
I've always had it.
It's a thing, right? I mean, it's a thing. It happens. It happens to us all. I know, I think the moment that I realized it was in my 30s, because, you can be firing on all cylinders, and then all of a sudden one day you go to access a word in your brain or somebody's name, and it's just not there.
There's nothing worse. I was talking to a small group of about 400 people, and I was about 3/4 through my talk, and I really don't like to use notes. I'm one of those people that, I'll do some bullets, but for the most part, no, forgot totally where I was, what I was supposed to be saying. So you know what I did? I went, ladies, You know when you're talking and your husband just blanks out and stares out the window? I'm having one of those moments right now. So let me look at my notes, flip that up. Okay, let's start over right over here. Did you hear that before? And you make a joke out of it and you keep going. But no, it's like that. Even when I conduct services, it's the same way. The only time that I'm really anal about it is if I'm doing a wedding or a wake or something of that nature.
Right.
I'm very, very, very careful with it, and I read off of I have prepared things that I read from. But when I'm speaking or if I'm teaching, no, it goes. Oh, look, look at that. It's something shiny. Quick, come on, guys, let's go look at it.
Squirrel.
No kidding. You know, it's funny that's the only time I don't do that. And Charles knows, I'm sure Charles knows this. I'll be trying to think of something. But if I'm doing a presentation, a spiritual presentation of any kind, then I don't use any notes either. I just get right through it without any problems.
Well, it depends with me because I do inspirational speaking. It's something that I was taught as a kid, and that is something that's totally different because you're kind of you're letting yourself take that step off to the side, and you're allowing spirit to access you. It's it's a controlled trance situation. So that's a little bit different. That's something where if I'm going to channel this thing through, bang, it's there. But, just me speaking on whatever, if I have to speak on a subject, I'm asked to speak on all sorts of subjects. And I'll just say interesting subjects. And the problem is I'm so involved with so many different things that they overlap, and sometimes the neurons just aren't connecting properly. So it depends. In my own everyday life, when I'm Tim, forget it, man brain. But when spirit comes in, that's a whole different subject.
So I can look back in my life, and you sound like kind of a guy like me. I mean, you move concrete and stuff like that. I was more into I was social service, but I was certainly was never a PhD or any of that kind of shit. And so I'd probably be down at the bar, sitting next to the stool and still next to you talking. That was my kind of my thing, would be hanging at the anchor bar or something like that. But I can look back and I see at one point in my life where a creator says, okay, Sutton, we got something a little deeper for you than where you're at. And I look back from then and saw a couple other times they kind of nudged me. This time they just dumped bucket of ice water on me. I can look back at that spot where I had that great satori, that great lightning bolt from spirit, and all of a sudden my whole world had changed. I knew that I wasn't quite sure yet how, but I knew that my life was going to be more of a more spiritual, directed type of life than it would have been up to that point in time. Did you have anything like that with you, where all of a sudden you realized, oh, okay, Shaw, things are gonna change up here a little bit?
Well, I mean, a lot of people kind of know this about me, but I was brought up Roman Catholic, parochial school, the whole shot. But spiritualism's been in my family since the 1880s, since the Golden Age. The Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly, which is a conclave of spiritualists up here in Western New York. I've had relatives that live there. So during the summer, guess what? I would go out there. And it was, in the beginning, it didn't gel, but then all of a sudden everything just kind of just meshed together. I think I started Lyceum, which is the Sunday school, around 9 or 10 years old out there. And that was primarily so that we didn't get in trouble, because the season opens up like in June and goes through Labor Day. Well, myself and some of the kids out there, we'd end up riding our bicycles into tourists and causing mischief and stuff. So they enrolled us in this just to keep us busy on a Sunday, So I really started learning really some great things. And it was really neat because, to me, I found no difference really between my Roman Catholicism and what I was learning as a spiritualist, except for the divinity of Jesus Christ, which the spiritualists honor him as an incredible great teacher.
Right.
there really isn't that much difference. There's semantics. The names of what happens, of the phenomena is different, but in essence, it's all the same. I worked with an exorcist with the Western Rite Catholic Church for a time. And it was funny. We would sit down and we'd be arguing over something, usually over like bourbon and cigars. But we'd be, well, I don't believe in this. Well, Tim, what do you think this is? And I'd be going, well, I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in angels and demons. Well, what do you call this? Well, I would describe it. He goes, that's what we call angels and demons. And it was funny because all of a sudden it kind of clicked.
Yeah.
I went to a lecture with a former Jesuit theologian, and at the time he was still teaching at Georgetown University. And it was like that was an aha moment because I could see everything that kind of fit together. But for me, spiritually, the Big Bang, I probably went to my first seance when I was about 9 or 10, 11, somewhere around there, children's seance. We never had Ouija boards, but we had the writing planchette, automatic writing planchettes. We used to do yes or no answers on polished tables with shot glasses, which is basically a talking board. We would go and work with, try to produce phenomena. It was pretty neat. And at the end of the summer, we would go back. I would go back, come home, and I'd go to parochial school, and Sister Mary, whatever, would be going, okay, class, would you like, guys are going to have to write an essay on what you did during your summer vacation. And everybody was going, oh, I went swimming and this and that. And me, I was like, oh, I went to a healing service. I went to a children's seance. I talked to my great-great-grandfather who's died in the 1950s. This is great. And inevitably, I got the little card that went and said, Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, we must talk. And my father actually went in there and explained it. Because my parents were not really, they said, I don't know why they sent me to a Catholic school, because neither one of them really practiced anything. And I remember the nun told my father, well, that's all fine and dandy, but could you tell Tim not to talk about it in class? And of course I had to, because I'm that type of guy. But I took classes, and I had a lot of experiences. Until I was about 18, I got more interested in booze, broads, and cars, I won't lie. And I was working and getting out there. And I came back to it when I went, I was actually, I was getting ready to get married. And I had just started getting back to it. And I had started living back at my parents' house, saving money. And I had logged back in the day. Now floats are, the floats now, they have all those little storefronts, where they have these isolation tanks and rooms. Back then, we had something called the Siddhara isolation tank. And if you guys go and watch the movie Altered States, the very last one where the guy evolutionizes back into a primordial whatever, that's the tank that I used. And I logged about 50, 60 hours in one. Not all at once, of course, but I mean hour, 2 hour, 3 hour increments. And I really pushed myself to a certain level, and I was meditating a lot at this time. And I actually saw spirit in my parents' house for the first time. And I went, that's fantastic. It was about 6 o'clock at night, and I was all set to go and work a second job. I ran a night crew in a grocery store. And this was great. Went to sleep. Woke up terrified. My logical mind kicked in, shut it down for about, I would say like 7 years, 5 to 7 years. And one day when the maturity level actually caught up to where I was supposed to be, it all opened up again. I mean, and I would say probably about so I was married in 85, so probably 1986, it really started to kick in heavily. And at that time I said, you know what? I should get seriousness. And I started studying Reiki, and I started studying a lot of shamanic studies. I studied with Tom Brown Jr. Out of New Jersey. And my favorite is Sandra Ingerman. I studied, she is a master at soul fractionation retrieval. It just, to me, was an amazing thing out at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. And from there, I started to realize that healing and everything was all one. And my spiritualist upbringing said, no, it's not. If you have help, you've got the guides and this and that. And that's where I started parting ways with, with the church, with an established church back then. But I started taking a lot of lessons. I had a lot of great instructors. I thank all of my mentors because they pushed me to levels that I would never have thought I could have achieved. And it's a wonderful thing because once I got serious in it, the world opened up for me. And I was working, I was working at the highway department, and people would whisper, they saw me here, they saw me there, or somebody's wife saw me at an event, and so I was a freak and crazy and all that. And then one day, I knew I made it when I was doing an event for the Allentown Arts Association downtown. And this guy walks up to me, and it was boring. So we're bending spoons. What else is there to do? I mean, really. But we were bending spoons. It's not mind over matter. It's more, it's just more, your own focus on your body. So we're bending spoons, and this guy comes up and says, "Could I take a picture of you for the news?" And I said, "Sure." And I'm thinking this guy is like, well, he's for a local newsletter or whatever, the Arts, Allentown. Sure. That was Saturday. Sunday morning at 8:30, my sainted mother calls me up. I'm on the picture page of the Buffalo News, twisting spoons, full color. My very religious family is visiting my mother at the time. So that was some explaining. And I went to work, and the picture was in the union box that I couldn't get out. And after that, people started really respecting it a little bit more. But the aha moment was fun, and I decided that I was going to go, and I won't say devote my life to it, because when I was a kid, and we go and sit and listen to the old people, and I'll say the old people, they're all my age, of course, now, but in Lilydale, there's a hotel. It's called the Maplewood, and the Maplewood has got an old Victorian porch. And back then, they had all these rockers on it, and kids were not allowed up on them on Friday and Saturdays, because that was for the visiting mediums and the registered mediums. And the kids, we couldn't even sit on the stairs. We had to sit in the dirt, and it was great. It was the best education anybody that is into spiritualism, paranormal, whatever, you could get. Because these people talked about some hardcore subjects. I mean, spirit rescues and souls that are trapped and energy and how to manipulate energy and manifestations. I mean, a really great education. And I always remember this guy kind of looked down at me, I must have been sitting there with my eyes like two saucers. And I always remember he had a walrus mustache. I don't even know what the guy's name is. It's big old walrus mustache, big old dude, big tanker on him. He looked at me and he said, "Hey boy," he said, "I'm just going to let you know something. What you're learning here is not to be your life. It's to be a great addition, a meaningful addition to your life. You should share it, but it's not to be your life. Get out there with the real people, get a job. You're going to be able to help more people and touch more people by doing that.
Yeah.
This is not to go and really, for you to go and put food on your table." I always remember he said that to me. And, it's not everybody's path, but I think that he was put there to tell me that because it really helped me. And I think I relate a lot easier to a lot of people. A lot of times, I'm an ordained minister, but I never use the title. Very seldom I use the title, because it seems to turn people off, because right away they get that whole Judeo-Christian thing where, you set these people above. And I never wanted to be like that. I was a person that always wanted to be with the people. I always wanted to talk on their level. I wanted to be friends. I wanted to minister to people that were, I wanted to be like them. And people really feel very, very comfortable around me. And I know even in my classes, I had stopped teaching for a number of years when I got sick. And I think one of the greatest compliments somebody ever gave me was, "We like to come hear you, we like your classes, because you're just like one of us. You don't think, you're anything different. And I think to myself, that's great. That's great. People walk away with something. So I'm happy with that.
But don't you think that anytime you have something to teach people, that you also have to be a student of life in a different way and understand where they're coming from? Because
Yes.
I always think that, we all have something to teach one another, and we all have something to learn from one another. But if you want to help somebody or teach them something, it could be something as simple as, how to run a OBS.
I agree. Yeah.
You kind of have to know a little bit about their background and where they come from, and what their experiences are that they bring into the learning session, in order to, I think, effectively teach them. Because I've been to things in the past where I was really looking forward to going to see an author, or somebody, a spiritualist, or somebody really cool for whatever reason, and I get there and the message is great, but there's no personal touch to that.
Right.
There's no
that's
because
that's something that is, oh my God, you're hitting on a really huge, like, something that really just drives me insane. You know what? I'm blessed. I am probably one of the most blessed people around, not just for my health right now, knock on wood, but also, I get pulled into the casino gigs. Whoever thought I'd ever do something like that? The big thing that I always do, whether it's a huge casino gig or it's a small, if I do what we call a stump service, which is an outside service, or if I do gallery, I always say to people, listen, I may not get to everybody here. But I'm going to stick around. You guys want a mini reading? Come to me. You want to talk to me? You want to, tell me something? I'll be here. I will be here as long as you want to talk to me. Right. And then I will always be available on the floor, or if I'm walking somewhere at an event, stop me. I always tell people that, because you have to have that personal touch. People, when I was growing up, a lot of these mediums were kind of a little scary, a little stuck up, and I don't like that. That's not what I am or who I am. I'm a person that, I really, again, I want to be part of the crowd. If I walk in a crowd, I don't want to be that guy that people point at, which they point at me anyway, because I'm really kind of weird anyway. But you know what I mean? I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that I want to just feel like everybody else.
Right.
And I think that's why I don't measure my success in anything other than, I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I was going to say, I got brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
Yay.
But that's it. I don't measure
Morning
success
started.
in it. And I get, the opportunities that come to me, they come out of left field. I never, I really don't look for them. I'll book events. I do. I'm not shy about that. But on the other hand, I just picked up 2 gigs in Ontario, Canada. They came out of nowhere. It was wonderful. It was just like wonderful. People, it's like, I never thought in my entire life that somebody would pay for me to go to New Orleans and do a gallery for an hour and then set me loose on Bourbon Street. Do you know what I mean? I never thought that I would ever have that opportunity to do something like that, or travel, or I've done, a few network TV shows, 30-second here, 5 minutes there, whatever. Never thought I would ever get that. Are you kidding me? I'm just a kid from Buffalo, That's what I am.
But I think what's really cool, though, is that you do retain, you live with one foot in both worlds.
Yeah, you have to.
Because, I think sometimes when people get to a certain point in their spirituality, in whatever it is, their career even sometimes, they forget what it was like to be themselves 5 or 6 years ago. And there are a lot of people that are just like them, that like they were 5 or 6 years ago, and they lose that ability to speak that language. And I think, because I've watched you over the years, and one thing that always
is that you looking at my window this morning?
It is me.
Yeah,
I'm like
she's a creator.
That was you.
It was me. So, one thing that strikes me about you is that you're very down to earth and you're very humble. Coyote's the same way. And, I
Yes, he
think
is.
about people like that, like Dan Class is very much like that.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
And, there are people that you really like and you really want to hear more from because they're so relatable and that, they don't have, even though that, you guys are in some ways larger than life, you don't put off that vibe. You put off the vibe as, you're good at what you do, but you're still learning and you still are open to learning. I think the moment that we close that window of, I know it all, I don't need to learn anymore.
Absolutely.
That's when things just, or what I've seen other people just.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You do it. You take a nosedive with that, and you have to always worry about that. I know myself because I've got an ego the size of Rhode Island. I'm not going to lie to you. I have a huge ego. I really do, but I try to keep it somewhat in check. I really try. Sometimes it sneaks out, but
But is that ego or confidence, Tim?
Well, it's a little bit of both because I'm a firm believer that you need the ego in order to bring your personality through to get the message out of what you're trying to do. And I feel that that's something that you can't suspend because all my early teachers were like, suspend your ego, it's evil and all this other stuff. Your ego makes you who you are. And I'm a firm believer that if you follow that, and you know what, I mean, you have to temper it with common sense. And if you can go and you can strike some kind of a balance, because life is all balance. Everything is balance. Everything we do is balance. Mm-hmm. If you can strike it with balance, you can get that message out. And that's what's important to me is get the message out. Because too many people, I used to do a lot of negative stuff. And too many people, they don't understand. They have somebody come in and they shake everything up, of course, and they try to explain to them what's going on, and they get more afraid of what's happening. In the early days with the spirit rescues, the circles were a whole different animal than what we do now. I mean, we go in there, we'd meditate, we'd pray. Everybody gets to that same level. You're trying to go and suppress like your own individuality to be part of the group, to raise the vibrational levels up in order to go and bring their friends and relatives and that down here to go and make it easier for that tormented spirit who is self-landlocked here, for them to go. And that's what I think is so important. People don't realize that. And I find a lot of paranormal people lacking in that, unfortunately, because they're hitting it, so they're hitting it hard, and the people are no longer people. They're cogs to me. People are going to these, to these residentials, and they're like using them, to get their stuff, get their, it's like they're going to their own little Disneyland, and that's kind of wrong because you have to put the person who is experiencing phenomena up first. Talk to them and understand where they come from. And then from there, you kind of figure out what's going on. And then you try to alleviate the situation. A lot of times what I find now is I find different groups that don't want to alleviate the situation. Because, oh my God, if Aunt Tilly disappears, we ain't going to have no place to go and play. And that's something that, and I get criticized for saying that. And I it's just my opinion.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion,
Right, but I mean, my whole thing is that we should be. I was taught, again, one of the spiritualist ideals that I was taught was that we're here on this earth to be of service, and it's just not of the other side, but also this side. That's why they call us mediums. You're supposed to be of service, and you're not of service if you're not going to go and your goal is to help both sides. So it's really it's again, it all comes down to balance, and that's some of the old ways of doing things. I just wish more people would actually, before they go and they buy some meters and stuff, they would go and and just take a class in how to speak to people and how to
Yes.
alleviate their fears, because we all know, when we start talking about energetic beings, I mean, I teach a class just on what you're going to run into out there in the big bad world. And the most common thing that I've, outside of like Aunt Tilly, who just happens to be dropping by to say hi, but I mean, you can pick up parasiticals out there. That's what we call them. That's what I call them, parasiticals, that live off of fear, live off of anger, jealousy, hatred, and all that. So the more scared you are, the more angry you are, the more this thing grows stronger. It's suck. And we all believe thoughts are things. Things are energy. It's all vibrational. See, that's where Kelvin and I, we kind of understood that. Energy can't be destroyed. It just changes shape.
Right.
And it's a big thing about that. And people, I've talked to some great people. I wrote a book on the C2D1 haunting of Geneseo State College. And the one thing that I took out of that book, and I've interviewed many people who have gone through violent negative hauntings, but the number one thing that I really kind of found out was forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to lessening and eliminating these negative parasitical energies, because with forgiveness, you no longer are fighting. You're just like, I don't know why, but I forgive you, regardless of what you're doing to me. And when you do that, psychologically, your vibrational level changes. You become more light, you become more buoyant. And to me, I always call it, the light is there. And all of a sudden, in all these negative hauntings, you start seeing these levels lowering and lowering and lowering. And it's a universal thing that I found. And I try to teach that in some of my classes. As a matter of fact, I just spoke on forgiveness 2 Sundays ago at a church. And people are getting it slowly.
Forgiveness is hard.
Oh, yeah.
Forgiveness is hard. It's because you have to give something up. You have to give something up to forgive. And
it's easier to hate. It's so much easier to hate, because I fall into that. I fall into that trap all the time. And I have to catch myself. Somebody does something to you. Well, I'm a human being, so I have these, I'm not perfect. So all of a sudden it's like, and then you catch yourself and go, okay, not only do I forgive myself for getting angry, but I forgive myself. I forgive the person or whatever, the guy who cut me off in traffic, the guy who flipped me off, or the guy who wrote something terrible on Twitter. You forgive that. And when you do, it no longer matters. Things become, it just eases through. And that's something I found with shamanic work.
It's hard.
Because shamanic work is a lot of forgiveness. That's one thing that I kind of learned. And in order to, and shamanic work for me was all balance again. Everything was balanced. And in order to make yourself sharper, to be a true warrior, it does 2 things besides being warlike and being, aggressive. They also are people who love and forgive. They are dual. The personalities, it's almost like an oxymoron. They don't seem like they catch, but they do. Yeah. And people don't get that, because we are all multidimensional people. Our personalities are multidimensional, and we have to go and we have to, we have to work in that way. And people just don't get that, but slowly but surely. We got a guy like Coyote. He's out there dancing around the fire with his drum. He's out there, baby. He's doing it.
And you know what? And I teach him, and exactly what you're saying is true. And we do a little meditation thing before we go out to hit the drum and to talk to spirits and to ask their forgiveness for us for some of the things that we have done, as our culture has done, as when we talk to the native spirits. But I always teach all these guys, and I don't know if they get it. Like, you're talking, and I understand exactly where you're headed with this, and I love it. But like you said earlier, a lot of these guys just, all they want to do is to have all this stuff they can share on Facebook about how cool this stuff is, and ran out on the family who was going through all this strife. But it's the balance, is it? I teach people to bring in the energy of Mother Earth and then Father Sky, and then we mingle them together. We go through this little, it's a exercise of sorts, but a guided imagery, I suppose you'd say. But get everybody into that balance mode and show them how that feels like. And this is where you've got to operate from, not from too much of this, too much of that. Don't be focused on what you're going to find. Be ready for anything, but just be ready to be. You don't have to be hard all the time. You can also be soft.
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
I want to stay on this forgiveness subject for a little bit longer if we can, because I think this is what is so hard for so many people. And until you start practicing forgiveness, it doesn't really become a key habit, you know? I think that if you look around at what's going on with social media right now and then the negativity that can abound, right?
Yes.
It's all consumptive behaviors. Like anger and greed and one-upping somebody, it's all consumptive. It's it's trying to consume something that you're never going to be satisfied with. You're
Right.
always going to be trying
Absolutely.
to keep one-upping and one-upping and one-upping. And forgiveness is a letting go. It's the exact opposite of a consumptive behavior. It's release. It's letting go of anger, of a fear, of pain, of something that you've had that you're holding on to. I can't forgive this person because they were mean to me or they said something to me that really hurt me. But why did it really hurt me? Did it hurt me because I liked this person? Did it hurt me because I didn't know I was still injured by this particular subject? Why did it hurt me? And then when you realize that, you know what, their behavior has nothing to do with yours,
There you go.
then it's like,
That's it.
it's like,
That's
oh,
it.
wow. It's like kind of clicks. So
Mhm.
how do you deliver that message on a mass level? Because I see so many people being consumed by it, and like they really genuinely get upset by these things, and it's like, let go, just forget about it. But by forget about it, I don't mean just forget about it. I mean forget. There's a process,
It's tough. It's tough.
How do you do
It's
that?
tough. It's so tough. I mean, I was attacked violently for years on social media by a certain person. And you know what? For a while there, my friends would strike back at him and put all this stuff on social media, and I would do it. And then one day, I said, and I always remember this. This was like one of those pivotal moments where you're like, oh, what am I, stupid? I should have done this years ago. I
love
went
those.
and I messaged him, and I said, listen, I don't know why we're at war. Why are we at war? I don't know. If I did something to you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And he wrote back this really nasty thing, and I wrote back to him again. I said, I'm not going to stop until we get something, kind of earned out. And I said, listen, I mean, I don't know why you're angry at me. I'm not angry at you. I've never done anything like this. You accused me of a lot of things. I've never done this. I don't understand. And the next message that came back was, are you dying? That was the next message. And I wrote back to him, no, I said, I just don't want to hate you anymore. And that's what I said. I just don't want to hate you. Hate is not good for anything. It's not good for our health. It's not whatever. And do you know what? It stopped. Every so often he'd throw a jab or something, but you know what? It stopped. And by forgiving him, by forgiving all the stuff that's in the past, and I've talked to some really, I won't mention some names, but I really can't. But, I was thinking about even going after this guy legally, and I just forgave him. I said, it's not worth it. Do whatever you want, but I forgive you. It stopped. At that moment, I knew that forgiveness was the key in what we do, is the key in order to be effective. It's the key if you're working with negative spirits, if you're working in you're doing a contact thing, you're working with the energies of lands. You are there to be the sounding board and to forgive. When you forgive, all of a sudden it feels like your energy just pops. And everything becomes more, how can I even describe this? Everything becomes clearer. That's the best way I can describe it. Everything becomes clear. And your message actually gets out there.
Yeah.
That is what's amazing to me.
You let yourself out of jail.
Exactly.
How
And
is
by
it-
doing that, you're no longer handcuffed to that hatred, and
Yeah.
that hatred's gone. And then all of a sudden, next you know, there you are. Listen, I wouldn't go have coffee with this guy, but on the other hand, I'm not going to go and just get nasty.
It's not a ball and chain anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I hang out. Like I say, I hang out with all sorts of great people. I hang out with Pentecostal Christians. I got voodoo practitioners, Santeria practitioners, all sorts of wonderful people from all different religions and traditions. And the one thing that I've learned from all of them, including some hardcore, like I say, Pentecostal Christians, and they can be pretty. They can get nasty.
Yep.
Was that, you know what? God turns around, God's spirit, whatever you want to call it, comes and puts these things in your life. It's up to you to be a strong man, and a strong man will hold back a team of horses with one hand. That's what I always remember him saying that to me. And that team of horses is hatred and it's jealousy. Can you hold it back? And then when you're ready to forgive yourself for hating that person, and then you go and you forgive that person, you can let the horses go, and all of a sudden the team of horses are not going to go in charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple.
Another key thing that I heard there was basically self-forgiveness and forgiving yourself.
Oh, you have to. You have to. Oh my God.
Do you think that's is equally important, or more so than
forgiving
others?
Yeah. Because you're talking to a guy that will loop and think of something that I did when I was 18 years old and go, was I that stupid? Oh, I hurt this person. Why did I do that? Oh my God, that was 40 some years ago. I wonder if they still live at the same place, because I should call them up.
Yeah.
No, you know what? You forgive yourself. You just say, you know what? I did something. It didn't. It's almost like addiction. You know yourself. It's almost like addiction. You have to go and forgive yourself for your mistakes, your actions. And you have to learn from those mistakes. And by forgiving yourself, you heal yourself. And when you heal yourself, you don't repeat those mistakes. And when you heal yourself and don't repeat those mistakes, then you lead by example. That's what you need to do. And more people need to do that.
Yeah. If you're getting real on your path, what's the first thing you're going to be doing when you're discovering your medicine, your gift, is that you're going to be looking at yourself.
Right.
If you are truly on your path, if you're truly making this change in your life, you have got to be totally honest. The first person to be totally honest with is yourself.
I agree 100%.
And clean my own house.
100%.
And that's how I see it too. And Tim sees it the same way. That's how it works. Is that you have to take care, clean up your own house and your own attic.
Yeah.
And
believe me, I got probably more skeletons than anybody around in my.
I don't know.
Of course, I got one right behind. I got two right behind me. That's another story. It's my Santa Mora days behind me, and I have my skulls. I have my skulls in the cabinet there.
So
I love reflections.
So my brother, if I were in need, okay, and I can just Tim. I can't. I'm lost spiritually. I'm not sure which way to turn. I've done this. How would you approach that? Me or any other person would come to you for help.
Someone who's lost spiritually is not really lost spiritually. They have a spirituality. It's just that they're questioning it. So, self-reflection. That's the only. Well, I won't say the only way, but the best way to do it. Self-reflection. I always go and I always tell people. Now, I've done Vision Quest and things like that in the past, and I'm a real big realist when it comes to that. I always tell people, just sit and think. Just sit and think. Is there something for you? Get back to your core beliefs. What is it that you believe at this moment? And then come back to me and let's talk about this, because communication and interaction is really the key in order to see what else is going on out there. And and I always say, listen, I don't have the answer, but let's talk, because I have friends. One of the best things I ever did in my life was I created a network of friends that are social workers, that are, that are exorcists, that are whatever.
Mhm.
What do you need? You're lost right now. And let's face it, we all go through that dark night. I mean, we all go through that where we question our own beliefs. And for weeks on end, you'll sit there and go, this is BS. I am this, no, I'm a fraud. That's another thing I go through. I'm
Mhm.
a fraud.
Yep.
I should not be doing this. And self-reflection is the number one thing that brings you back into some kind of reality. And then intercommunication, that's a huge thing. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to explore, especially if you're lost spiritually, because there's so much out there. And this day and age, I tell them, do me a favor, don't go on the internet. Go and speak to people. If you feel inclined to, maybe just go to a different church, go to the church. Is there a group that you want to learn from? Is there some learn from people? Get out there and interact. And the more that, and luckily, again, that's me. Spirit puts all these wild people in my path, and I just run with it. And by doing that, though, I'm able to go and kind of pick out when somebody comes back to me and says, listen, I kind of believe this. Okay, let's talk about it, and let me see if I can squeeze you to the right person.
Mhm.
And that's a lot, again, and you know yourself, a lot of people will go and they don't want to give up the case. Well, the whole idea behind this is, if you want to do something properly, you've got to be able to go and give this away. You've got to be able to push
Oh,
that
yeah.
person in the right place. Everybody can't do anything. It's like, as a reader myself, as a spirit medium, I can't read everybody. I'm going to come right now and tell you, I can't read everybody. I can't.
Mhm.
Not well. I can get into it, but I can't read everybody.
Right.
I turn around, and if it's a pay gig, I'll give you your money back. Go,
Yep.
listen. Go. There's people all over the place. Find somebody else. I will recommend somebody who I think you'll mesh with better. You find that, I've been doing this for like, I don't want to tell you how many years, but I feel Moses gave me the 10 Commandments. That's how many years I think I've been doing this. But if you can go and you can help somebody by getting them to the right person, that's your jobs. That's what Spirit put you on this earth for. We all have things that we're supposed to do in life, and I believe that we're predestined to it. Uh, I've I couldn't clean up dog poop, and I ended up working in a hospital part time in ORs, cleaning up blood spills and all this nasty stuff. And I had an uncle that fell down a flight of stairs and he died, and I cleaned up a 6-foot blood pool around him. I helped take my father's remains out of the house. This is stuff that Spirit prepares you for, and it's up to you to go and help a person who's in that questionable zone. We're all put on this earth to figure out what we're supposed to be doing and to help other people do the same thing. And that's why I always tell people, explore. Life is an adventure. You always read on my Facebook, Team Shaw has got a new adventure. I had a new adventure today. I'm always putting a new adventure up there. You want to know why? Because it should always be an adventure. Life should always be an adventure. And that's the way I look at life. And I try to get other people to look at life the same way. And people are like, well, how come, I don't know if I could go to this guy or this group or whatever. I'll go with you. You'll go with me. Oh yeah, I know him. Come on, let's go. Powwow. Even, I know Mike Bestine is a friend of mine. He's an Algonquin, and he is one of the last of the wisdom keepers,
Mhm.
taught by Mad Bear Anderson up on the Tuscaloosa Reservation. And
Yeah.
he's just an amazing person. So let's do a step here. Come on, I'll take you to one of his talks and I'll introduce you afterwards. And I want you to talk to him and tell him what you told me. And I'll sit right there and keep my mouth shut, And all of a sudden now, that's the first step. Okay, now we're starting to rebuild this person. We're starting to let him see where they are, what he is. And before you know it, he's gone to 5 or 6 different places and talked to 5 or 6 different people about different aspects of spirituality. And now he's back into the fold.
It's like
And that's what's
jumper.
so cool.
It's like jumper cables to the soul.
Exactly.
I remember when I lived in New York City, there were times when I would get so tunnel visioned into what I was doing in work and everything else
Oh,
that
yeah.
I would start to neglect the spiritual side of myself. And when I moved to Jersey City, there was a little temple down the street from me. It was a Hindu temple, and I whenever I felt like things were just getting too much, I'd go on a Saturday, kick my shoes off at the door, walk in, sit in the back. I had no idea what words were being spoken. It didn't matter. I was
Isn't it true?
welcome.
Exactly.
I was welcome.
Exactly.
I sat down, and you could sit there for 30 minutes, an hour, however long you wanted. But whenever I left there, I felt that jolt. I had that spiritual kick again. And
Mm-hmm.
so many places that we live in our lives or go to or work to, there's always somewhere you can find to be that.
And people sometimes just need that little push.
Spiritual jumper
People that
cable.
are
Yeah.
that are, and most of the people that I've worked with, they were brought up in a one religion, and it was very rigid, and especially in the gay and lesbian communities, that's a huge thing where they were forced into these molds and stuff, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're out there, but they're missing something, and that's why I try to go and push them into go and you're not going to be judged here, you know. Most of my congregations that I've ever served had large denominations of gay and lesbian, and people, and they're always so, and sometimes they're competitive because of how badly they've been hurt, and you've got to be able to bring them into these places and
It's a deep
show
pain.
them that spirituality. My biggest thing that I tell people, is this: religion is created by man on this earth. Your spirituality is a covenant between you and your God, your creator, your deity, and that guy up there, woman up there who's got 1,001 other names. That's what's so important. People don't get that.
Yeah.
And because we're always taught to departmentalize ourselves into these little boxes. And in truth, there is no little box. There are no walls for spirituality. You are what you are. You go and you can explore. And I know a lot of a lot of people within the traditions. I knew Ray Buckley when he was alive. And the big thing that even he said to me was, you don't have to be like in a coven. You don't have to be in a little group. You have to be in a coffee clutch. But what you have to do is be open enough to look around you and be adventurous enough to go and experiment and look. And again, you can run into some trouble with, cults and extremism, and that's something you always have to worry about. But, you got to be fearless when it comes to your own spirituality, or you become this empty shell of a human being. And that's what you don't want to be.
That's dangerous.
You don't want to die and just be, hey, hit me with the morphine because I know there's nothing else, and I don't even know why I'm bothering. That's when you start getting into that, really depressive state, and you want it. For me, I can't wait because it's like, I'm hoping this is my last incarnation down here. I'm hoping I just become one with everything after this. I really do. But if
I'm
not,
getting really tired of this incarnation stuff.
But the idea is that you have to have something, and I'm just reading a really descriptive book on a Civil War field hospital at Gettysburg, and my ancestors fought there, and one of them died there.
You just picked on one of Sharla's big projects right now too.
Yeah.
So that's what she lit up.
Oh, and I've been going down there since I was young. So I've walked the field just about everywhere, and it was so neat because I was reading in the book. It was a nurse that wrote these letters home, and it was like he was with his God at the end. He was this at the end. He was content to die at the end. He let go because he knew that he was going to heaven at the end. That's a belief system. That's your spirituality. That's not all religion. That's not all real. That's absolute belief, and that's what you need in this life. And people, we don't get that because we're so homogenized, because of our society the way we are. And you need that. You need that. And I was really struck by that, by those letters. You have to have something. You have to have that belief, because at the very end, you don't want to be afraid to die, because we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody. Every time I go to my doctor and says, hey, listen, my back hurts. Nobody gets out of this life alive, Tim. That's what she tells me. It's like, how true is that? Just go and be prepared.
And look at a guy like Carl. Carl Sagan was was agnostic, or he was at least then. No, he was actually he didn't believe in God at all. And they said there towards the end, he had told somebody, because he'd had cancer and he knew he was dying. He wished he had developed his faith, his spiritual faith, more so he had something, because he realized at the end he didn't have anything left.
Right.
That's and that was it. And he was smart enough to realize, yes, I can see the wisdom.
And when he was dying, I saw an interview. And I was a kid, and when he was passing, he was. I think he probably had a month or 2 months to go. He said, "All I know of is that I don't believe in anything after death, no life after death. I believe it's a great sleep." And I thought to myself, how sad that is.
Yeah.
The great sleep. And I understand what he was getting at, but I hope that there's a little something on the, I shouldn't say I hope. I said hope. I believe that there's a little something more on the other side, that, we all go into that energetic state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we believe out of hope too, and experience. Right. So I think that it was interesting. I watched, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name now, but I'm old and I can't. He is a doctor who works at in a hospice. He's a hospice doctor, and he's for the past 10, 12, 15 something odd years, he has been studying the dreams that people have up until their very last day, and he begins this research and this study with them, as early as possible in their hospice care. And it was a TED Talk, actually. It was a Buffalo TED Talk, and if you go to research it or look it up, and it was really fascinating because I think the main thing, the recurring theme, was that towards the end, people saw their relatives, and it gave them great joy. It was a dreamlike state. Was it a dream? Was it not a dream? Regardless, I think that that's a pretty wonderful thing to think about, and in the end, that those people that you and this was, the majority of the people that he worked with in hospice all had these same experiences, and in this sequence of events, and I think that's pretty comforting to know that when and if that moment does come, and you're either lucky or unfortunate enough, however you look at it, to experience the process of dying as opposed to a quick death, that to know that you are going to go through those experiences, and you are going to be greeted by, even if it is hallucinations, by something happy, something warm, and something welcoming.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of scientists say that's all our neurology that's kicking in, and it can be, but I will tell you that having witnessed several family members who have passed, I can say that it's a beautiful thing, because it really, and it's almost like, it's funny. My mother-in-law recently passed, and she says to my wife, "Well, your father was here." "Well, really? What'd he say?" Yeah. "He didn't say anything. He just poked me." And my wife looked at her and said, "What did you do?" She said, "Well, I told him to get lost." And these are things that are just funny. It's their personalities. But yes, and this is, and in retrospect, before my father-in-law passed away, he was seeing spirits, and he didn't really believe in too much of that, but he started seeing them, and he'd tell me about it. And he always had somebody he'd fall asleep in his Easy Boy, and someone would come up and poke him. So I'm just, it was sort of it just kind of carried on. And I felt that that was a sign of him to my wife to let her know that he's here.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a joyous thing. It takes that fear out of it, and
Yeah.
and I think that's what's so important about it, because we
Yeah.
live in such a fearful society now. I mean, you know, listen, I live a shotgun blast away from the local hood here, and you know, people fear. My neighbors fear. I don't fear. I don't have any problems with anybody here. You know, you drive, you're fearing the way other people are driving. You fear that you're going to get mugged. You fear that you're going to get into a crowd and there's going to be a shooter. We live in that society, and it's so unfortunate, because I think we've lost something of our own humanity by that. And you have to be able to go and kind of live fearlessly in order to really live fully.
Well, all that statistical data has created more statistical data. You know, it's like it just is this snowball effect. And I
Exactly.
think the best thing that I ever did for myself in the past year, it's been a kind of a crazy year for me. But one thing I did was I turned off the TV. I turned off CNN. I turned off Fox. No offense, networks, but you know,
I did the same. I did the
turned it
same
all
thing.
off, and it has
I did the
been.
same thing.
I have been so content with humanity and the world for the past year.
You know what? I can read. I can read the news.
Yeah.
I can take the time. I can read the
If
news.
something's bad enough, I'll get a notification. Somebody's going to text me, or I'll get some sort of emergency, whatever. But I can't. I see folks who are constantly giving into all of the hype. You know, they're giving into. They're being so mind manipulated. Yeah. By
I agree 100%.
that it's
really,
you just got to walk away from it, or watch something else that doesn't involve, you know, fear is a product and it's being sold left and right.
it does, and you're always going to remember one thing: fear is something that keeps the masses off balance. If the masses are off balance, they no longer look for the truth because they're fearful. So you got to stop fearing, and you got to keep the truth out there. That's like, you know, I mean, again, I mean, I don't like to pick on like TV shows, because I'm a part of the animal. But on the other hand, you got to think to yourself, this is entertainment. Strip it down and see why it's edited in a certain way, or, you know, it's entertainment, and what are the sponsorships, and what is all that? And it's the same thing if you start looking at the news networks. It's the same thing. What is it that they want to see? The old adage, if it bleeds, it leads, is true. It really is true. So, I mean, I remember after 9/11, and everybody was affected. I mean, we were all affected. You know, I being I was a first responder up here, and FEMA training, the whole thing. When that happened, I remember all sorts of mental health officials, and they said, if you can't take it, turn off the TV. Turn off the TV. Because we were bombarded. How many times did each one of you see one of the towers fall in an hour? Every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. It became something that was just, we became fearful. We became fearful of other people. We became fearful of cultures. Everything became fear. And this fear mongering is unfortunately an example of, you know, of some of the problems that we have today. So, I mean, we have to be able to go and live fearlessly. We have to, and as human beings, it's tough because fear is built into us. I mean, that old lizard brain back here in the back, that little lizard thing back there in the back of our brains, fight or flight, survival. It's what they go and they try to go and they influence it.
Find entertainment that speaks to your soul, and not that tries to crush it.
Agreed.
If you're walking your walk, and you know that spirits is with you.
Exactly.
Below me and always with me, then I can live with whatever else happens, and I'm not scared of it. I don't walk out my door fearful anymore, because I am calm, and I am very in tune. I very much believe what I have.
But you have to, and so many people aren't, though. And again, everybody's off balance. How many people do you meet at a conference that are so off balance. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like they come up to you and they could be standing sideways. They're so off balance. And, and they almost hyper themselves up into a frenzy because they want to. And it's because a lot of times they think that they're supposed to. And that psychologically is detrimental to the psyche. And, that's why, again, everybody laughs at me because I am probably when I teach, when I talk, I yeah, I could do highbrow if I wanted to, but that's not cool. I teach by the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, because I'm as stupid as everybody else. Believe me. Keep it simple, stupid, and that's the way that I go. And I look at my life. Just keep your life as simple as possible. We don't live in an expensive house. We don't live an extravagant life. We don't travel like a lot of people do. And I was able to retire at 58. I was able to go and do what I want to do. I was able to, even when I was working, I still was able to do what I wanted to do. And again, I mean, I'm very, very low key, and I'm a very, very low maintenance person, except for my hair, as you can tell. And that's what I feel that keeps me grounded. And that people are off ground, they're just not grounded anymore. And whether it's the breakdown of the spirituality or breakdown of their own personal belief system, it's hard to go and put a finger on it. But again, if you have the opportunity to help somebody, you do it.
CSACM, 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 CSACM,